But now, Labour's Shadow Transport Secretary, that's Louise Haigh, is with us to discuss this further. Very good morning to you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us on Sky News Breakfast. If Richard Sharp is indeed found to have broken the code for public appointments, should he resign?
Well, look, of course, we'll have to wait to see the outcome and the details of the report. But if it is revealed that he has failed to declare the details of this loan arrangement properly or failed to be forthcoming in the process, then, of course, he will have to go.
Do you think it's right that BBC chair appointments do have a political affiliation?
I think this whole affair has cast a great cloud over the public trust in the BBC and the way that appointments are made at the moment, and it's been really concerning to see how the government has sat back and done very little about the potential breaches in the process and done nothing to help restore trust and faith in the impartiality of the BBC. My colleague Lucy Powell has set up already in opposition an independent panel to look at appointments and to look at these issues in great detail, and they're already making progress on how appointments should be made. But we need to see the outcome of this report and we need to see it acted on accordingly. I don't think it's necessarily a problem that people have political affiliation, but it is obviously important that people have faith in the way that appointments are made and that people then act completely impartially in their roles within the BBC.
I mean, does it matter that Richard Sharp helped facilitate this loan for Boris Johnson if it didn't impact his actions at the BBC or how he carried out his job?
Well, that's what the report, I think, needs to determine. But what does matter is if he failed to declare it in the proper way, and exactly that, if it allowed him or persuaded him or it then led him to behave in a way that was improper. And that's exactly what the report we hope will determine. And that's what it then should determine how we act and how Richard Sharp acts.
If there's no evidence of Richard Sharp acting in an improper way, should he stay in post?
Well, again, I just don't know what this report is going to find. But look, if he has acted improperly, if he has failed to declare the loan according to the BBC's own guidelines, then obviously he will have to go. But I think this whole saga raises wider issues around the way that the government has approached the BBC and the particular links of the Tory party with the BBC.
I'd like to talk to you about strikes now, if I may, Louise. ASLEF and the RMT unions have announced strike dates which will directly impact the FA Cup final as well as the Eurovision Song Contest in Liverpool. Are you comfortable with these unions targeting these big public events?
Look, obviously, nobody wants these strikes to go ahead. Least of all, me. I'd really like to get to Liverpool to help celebrate Eurovision. I've not got tickets, by the way. I just want to get to Liverpool to join the party. So we absolutely do not want these strikes to go ahead, and I will be doing everything I can to help avoid them in 2 weeks' time. But the unions have given the government full notice. And what's important to say is that these negotiations and these industrial action has been going on for almost a year now. That represents an enormous failure, frankly, on all sides, but particularly from the government, who it feels have washed their hands over the last few months about this dispute. And my understanding is that no government minister has been at the talks or has been facilitating any negotiations for nearly 4 months. In fact, my understanding is that no transport minister has even made contact with one of the unions for several months now. And that represents not just a failure, but an unimaginable complacency, frankly, from the government in relation to these disputes. So they should be holding urgent talks now. There's no reason at all why they couldn't facilitate talks between the employers and the unions today, and they should be straining every sinew over the next few days to avoid these strikes in the coming weeks.
Yeah, but just on the issue of Eurovision, it may seem petty that I'm drilling down into this, but, you know, there are Ukrainian refugees who are going to Liverpool. We're hosting Eurovision on behalf of Ukraine this year. There are Ukrainian refugees who've been given subsidised tickets so that they can go and enjoy this concert after an unthinkable year for their country. Should there not be a moral line that unions cannot cross?
But look, again, we just want to make sure that we do absolutely everything that we can to avoid these going ahead, and there is still plenty of time to avoid them happening, and still plenty of possibility. Let's just, as I said, these industrial dispute has been going on for a year. Let's compare and contrast that with Labour-run Wales, where there hasn't been a strike on the rail operator there on Transport for Wales, because the government sat down with operators and the unions from the beginning and negotiated in social partnership and in good faith. These negotiations have broken down week after week over the last year because that has not been approached in good faith. And the operators, the employers, and Network Rail themselves have said that the negotiations that a compromise has been harder to reach because of the Transport Secretary, the previous Transport Secretary's poisonous rhetoric, and because he almost deliberately undermined the talks and the prospect of negotiation. So look, I don't want this strike to happen on the day of Eurovision. We want to do, and I will be personally doing everything I can to help bring it to a close. But the responsibility rests with government, and it's all well and good the Transport Secretary tweeting in disappointment yesterday, but it is his job to bring everyone to the negotiating table and avoid it happening in 2 weeks' time.
I haven't got my brief for them. OK, Louise Haigh, thanks very much. I hope you make it to Eurovision OK. It's been good to have you with us. Thanks very much.